Lindsay Clancy, she is on trial for unaliving her 3 children, a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and an 8-month-old. Let that sink in.
We're here to send one message, and that message is that it should not take tragedy for people to start paying attention to mental health.
I believe that women deserve support, and Lindsay didn't receive the support that she deserved.
We love you, Lindsay, and we're here for you. We're here to show support and love for her.
More than 100 people demonstrated outside of Plymouth Superior Courthouse on Thursday morning for Lindsay Clancy, the mother facing triple murder charges for fatally strangling her 3 young children. Her legal team is making the case of an insanity defense and says she suffered from postpartum psychosis. The tragedy has shed a spotlight on maternal mental health, and Lindsay's supporters say treatments of postpartum illnesses needs a reckoning.
My goal today is to support the postpartum health of women. I have 5 children. I feel like anyone who has had kids understands that postpartum period. Lindsay Clancy was begging for help from everything we can see, and I don't think she got it.
Professionally, it hits me, and personally, it hits me. With mental health, we've done a really bad job of recognizing that just because somebody says that they're doing okay, doesn't mean that they're doing okay.
I'm here supporting Lindsay because I've been through what Lindsay's going through and been failed with mental health.
She was failed and she was let down. So many women suffer from postpartum and they don't always get help that they need.
It means a lot to me because I can feel that pain and that disparity as a mother to a mother.
And Clancy supporters see her lawyer, Kevin Reddington, as a crusader for postpartum health care.
And Lindsay's here. Oh, it's Reddington. God bless Kevin. God bless him. We do love Kevin. Kevin is so instrumental in this process because he's given a voice to all these women that have had no voice for so long. We're so grateful that someone is hearing us. And we can shout from the rooftop that finally someone is hearing that we as women, we do need help and we do need support. And see, that's why we're all here. And we love you, Lindsay.
I feel that this could be like a watershed moment. This needs to, it was so tragic, but hopefully from this, we will see a huge change. We will see that people are, I really feel like the village needs to come back around women after they have children.
I hope that doctors will not just dismiss women because that is what's happened decade after decade after decade. It's not right, it's not fair, and you have to at some point acknowledge that it does happen, you know, and something needs to change. And if anything comes from this, if any silver lining comes from this, maybe that's it, that there will be a change in that.
The Lindsay Clancy murder trial is probably one of the most bizarre trials I've ever witnessed in my entire life. And it's not because this would be the first time I've heard of a parent unaliving their kids or a mother unaliving her children. Unfortunately, this is something that we've seen multiple times, but it's the way that she's become a martyr. It's the way in which Lindsay Clancy is being used to promote ideas about femininity, or more specifically about women being victims, even when they are the offenders. And before I get into it, I want to just give you guys a quick recap of what's been going on, and specifically the weird things I see going on, and how there are women who I believe are just being completely and totally unaccountable and wanting to promote a culture where unaccountability for women is acceptable. So just as a recap, basically Lindsay Clancy, she's 36. She is on trial for the strangulation of her 3 biological children. Let that sink in. She is on trial for unaliving her 3 children, a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and an 8-month-old. And she has pleaded not guilty to all counts. Now, mind you, it's pretty clear that she did actually unalive the children. That is not up for debate. It's not up for debate on whether or not she's responsible for the unalivings or the deaths of these 3 innocent children. No, that's already assumed to be the case. What is up for debate is whether or not she is responsible for the action that she did. And that to me already is such a bizarre conversation to have, because it's like, how do we exist in a culture where somebody can actively unalive their own children and then we get to debate on whether or not they're responsible for it? Well, I'm like, well, hell, but like, who else is responsible for it if they're the ones who did it? But that's besides the point. The next section is the prosecution alleges Clancy unalived the children with exercise bands, then cut her wrist and neck and jumped from a second-story window, leaving her paralyzed. Again, to my understanding, these aren't allegations. These are actual facts. These are things that did happen. Again, the question isn't whether or not these things happened. The question is whether or not she is responsible for the things that she did. That, again, to me, is what is insanely bizarre about this case. And it wouldn't be the first time that these kinds of conversations are had, you know, in the court of law, but I do think it's bizarre. Third is the defense argues Clancy lacks criminal responsibility due to postpartum depression and psychosis, presenting an insanity defense. And so basically, this is really the whole defense, right? You have her defense, who was alleging that she's not responsible because she basically was insane or was dealing with some postpartum insanity, right? Then you have the ones who are prosecuting who are saying, no, she was very much in her right mind and this was very much intentional. And that's pretty much the whole case. And that's what's been, they've been debating back and forth. There's been different details. You've had some professionals who argue that she should not be held responsible because she was in a state of psychosis. We've had others who say there was nothing that would point to her being insane. There's nothing based upon my interactions with her that would reflect that she was insane. Depressed, yes. Mentally unwell, yes. But insane, no. There's been debate right now where the court is at, is trying to basically decide whether or not she is ultimately responsible for her actions. If she was in her right mind when she decided to unalive her kids. Now, here's why I think this whole conversation is insane. Anybody who kills anybody is not in their right mind when they do so. I mean, perhaps outside of like self-defense or, you know, or extreme cases like that, generally speaking, if you're going out of your way to kill somebody who was innocent, you're not in your right mind. To me, that already just seems like such a bizarre position to have. And again, I understand this is, you know, this is the legal framework. She's probably paying a pretty penny to have people ultimately fight for her to have the best chance. But, you know, another thing that's really bizarre to me about this is not just the case itself, it's the way in which she is being made a martyr. You had women who are treating her as if she's done something noble. They've done marches for her, wearing pink. They're supporting her. They're clapping for her. They raised $2 million for her parents. It's completely insane. They're acting as if she actually did something noble. And I'm like, this woman did not do anything noble. She is not a martyr. She is someone who unalived her 3 children. Now, if you want to have sympathy for postpartum, I can understand it. If you want to have honest conversations about mental health, I am not opposed to any of those different things. But that doesn't mean that a person shouldn't be held responsible. I'm like, why don't we have these conversations so much when you look at like school shooters? Even when men unalive their children. When men unalive their children, it's because they're violent, it's because they're misogynistic, and it's because they hate their mom and they're narcissistic. I don't feel as if the public is so quick to want to defend men when they do these kinds of acts. But now, because it's a woman, and it's specifically a white woman, and she's pulling what to me seems like the white woman tears and sympathy, you know, all these people are acting like she's the victim. And I'm like, how is she a victim of her own actions? No one forced her to unalive her kid. Here's a crazy defense, right? One of the most recent evidence is that she alleges that the reason that she unalived her kid is because she heard a male voice tell her to unalive her children or else her children were going to be unsafe. Okay, so you mean to tell me that in order for your kids to be safe, you need to unalive them? That doesn't make sense. But now she's blaming it on a random male voice. We're blaming Jermaine now. You unaliving your kids. Like, this whole thing to me is so freaking bizarre. What's not even bizarre is necessarily the court doing this thing. This is exactly what the courts are supposed to do. It's the way that I see women trying to bend over backwards to create narratives in which she's not responsible for the actions that she made. She's the one that ultimately decided to do what she did. Again, I'm not saying that you can't have compassion on her and maybe hope for her to be rehabilitated or all of that. I am all about rehabilitation, but that doesn't change the fact that she should be held responsible for her actions. And what really concerns me about this conversation is that it seems like a whole bunch of different women who don't want to be held responsible for their actions because they had a freaking bad day or bad weeks or months. And it's like, hell, people go through depression. That happens, but that does not excuse the fact that ultimately 3 innocent children are not unalive because you had a bad day or even bad months. That doesn't change that. I am sure there are plenty of women I know who have struggled with postpartum depression who don't go out there trying to unalive their kids. I don't want to be insensitive, but what I'm saying is that we don't hold the same energy and we don't hold the same compassion equally. If we were willing to be this compassionate all across the board, no matter who the gender or race or socioeconomic background, no matter how the person looked or appeared in society, then I would back off. But to me, the fact that she's a woman, the fact that she's white, and the fact that this is something that a lot of white liberal feminist brow-burning women can maybe resonate with in some way is why I think this is even a conversation up for debate. And it's nuts. It is totally and completely nuts. Now, can we have a conversation about healthcare and how it's not perfect? Mental health is not perfect. People being overdrugged, people being overdiagnosed, all of those are real things. Does that ultimately excuse someone from being held responsible for actions that they took? Again, I'm not an attorney, right? But to me, on a basic level, in this case, it doesn't seem like it. Because in my humble opinion, just based upon the facts of the case, what she did seemed very calculated. It wasn't like she went into a mania when her husband was there, people were there, and it just was sporadic. She definitely waited in a time where she was by herself, when her husband was not around her. She was alone by herself with the children. That's when she waited to do what she did. And she definitely took 3 calculated steps. She took pills, she slit her wrist, and she jumped out of the window to try to unalive herself. Those were very calculated attempts for her to basically escape responsibility. So that doesn't sound like a lapse of insanity of like, I just lost all reason and didn't know what I was doing. To me personally, that sounds very calculated. And again, if you want to argue that she wasn't in a good state of mind, well, of course she wasn't. Nobody who commits murder is. But I don't think that means that she should be completely unaccountable for her actions. And the very fact that she is a mother who has 3 children and doesn't feel even a little bit of remorse, doesn't feel even a little bit of guilt, just like, you know what, because I've done this, I should serve a little bit of time. The fact to me that she's trying to get off herself, I don't know, to me that is even more concerning, because I would think that a natural mommy guilt would be like, I did this. Even if she was in a state of mania or hysteria or whatever, even if she was having an insane moment, I would think that natural mommy guilt would kick in and she would say, you know what, even though I was in a wrong state of mind, I failed my children. I should not have done that, and I feel like I should pay something. I should pay even a little bit of time. But the fact that she is trying to argue for getting off scot-free is to me what's even more concerning, because that just doesn't seem consistent with any mother that I know who naturally struggles with mother guilt, which is very common. And it doesn't seem consistent with somebody who is ultimately remorseful. And it doesn't seem like somebody who's actively trying to take responsibility for what they did or accountability for what they did. You know, me personally, I just don't think this is something to rally behind. I don't see her as a martyr. If we want to have conversations about women's mental health not being taken seriously, I don't know that this is the hill to die on. I don't know if trying to make a martyr out of a woman who unalived her 3 kids is who we want to use as the emblem of mental health for women. But I think this is totally nuts. I've heard conversations about why women shouldn't vote, and while I can't say I necessarily totally agree with the positions, this would be a pretty compelling reason to argue why women shouldn't be able to vote when you see insane instances like this. Anyways, y'all, that's what I have about this whole thing. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. Thank you so much for listening if you've gotten this far, and we'll talk later, okay? Bye. I want to share a story that is very close to my heart, and that explores a serious yet often overlooked issue in the Black community: Black misandry. In the book, it's not Jermaine's fault. Jermaine gets blamed for everything, even things he didn't do. When his teacher develops a personal dislike for him, school becomes a place of turmoil, causing him to question himself and his own worth. This book directly tackles the unique challenges many Black boys face in education as early as grade school, including being misunderstood, unfairly judged, and struggling to have their voices heard. This story was created to educate, encourage, and inspire both kids and adults while highlighting the importance of support, understanding, and positive solutions. Whether you're raising a young king, supporting a child through similar experiences, or simply know what it feels like to be blamed for things you didn't do, this book is for you, a meaningful read for children and adults alike. Grab your copy today, available in digital and paperback formats on Amazon and my website.